Welcome to Desk Geek. Today I'm going to show you something you are absolutely going to love. If you've been wanting to get into the world of Linux, but you're too scared to go in and get rid of your Windows operating system, you're smart enough to know that if you install Ubuntu on a partition on your hard drive, it's going to install Grub, and then it's a surgical procedure to remove it if you ended up hating one of the Linux distributions that you installed. You could really impact your files and lose stuff. So you want to try it, but you don't want to take the risk. Well, you could go with the USB option and run it straight from a USB, but you're not going to get the real experience. You're not going to get the real speed, the real beauty of Linux distributions. So what I'm going to show you today is an application called VirtualBox. Now, technically, this is an open source highlight as well because VirtualBox is an amazing tool. If you don't know about it, it allows you to run operating systems in a virtual environment. There are people running Mac OS X on and Mavericks on VirtualBox. You can run, if you have a complete Linux distribution, you can run Windows through VirtualBox. You can do SAS and connect to SAS servers if you're wanting to learn that, or SQL servers. It's amazing. It's robust. It's beautiful. Oracle wrote it. No surprise there. They're a great company for software. So let's get in it and let's start a distribution. But before we start, I want to say something. I know that some of the more hardcore Linux folks tend to get down on installing Ubuntu. They don't like Ubuntu, but me, I love Ubuntu. I think it's a fantastic Linux distribution. I know there's a lot of flack that it gets sometimes, but it is the best beginner operating system. If you just want your computer to work, you can install it really on any level of hardware and it will work beautifully. The drivers are always there. I always have internet no matter what I've installed it on, from an old Dell XPS $40 machine I got at Goodwill to a server that I have, to my main computer here. Ubuntu works. Now, there are other fantastic distributions out there. You've got Mint, you've got Debian, you have Fedora, and they're beautiful and they're wonderful. Elementary OS, oh my God, can you get a more beautiful design and setup? With that said, I'm using Ubuntu today for the demonstration with VirtualBox because I assume you may, if you're wanting to use this, you may be a newer user, or at least some of you will be newer users, and I want to make sure that you start with one of the Linux distributions that I think is the easiest, simplest to get set up and started. With that said, VirtualBox will allow you to install multiple distributions. So let's say you got Ubuntu and you want to try Elementary OS or Fedora or something along those lines. You can install them all right here. You can have several instances running. You can try them all out and see which one you happen to love. But today I'm doing Ubuntu. So what you're going to do is I'm going to have the links down below. You're going to download 2 files. That's it. And they're both free, completely free. If you want to give a donation to Ubuntu for downloading an entire OS, you can, but you can skip that as well. So completely free. Go download Ubuntu here and download VirtualBox here. Once you have those 2 files downloaded, go ahead and run VirtualBox and run through the prompts. Now, I will tell you that my antivirus software came up and said, this is not a trusted source. And I just clicked more info on Windows 10 and clicked run anyway because I know this is the right site for VirtualBox, and most likely being open source and free, it's just not a package of licenses that Windows recognizes. But don't be afraid of that. But do make sure you use my link, or if you want to search on your own, but make sure it's an actual VirtualBox link and not somebody trying to charge you for it. The site should look just like this. It should be plain, no ads, nothing to distract you, and you'll know you're in the right place. So download VirtualBox, run that, install it. It's pretty simple install. You will lose internet connection for a minute because remember, it's got to configure itself as a virtual machine, but then it'll come right back on. It's not going to hurt anything, but just a warning with VirtualBox and kind of how it operates when you first install it. And it will tell you when that's about to happen, and then your machine will come back up. So then you're going to get a screen like this, and it's going to look like a blank screen with a new button. And guess which button you're going to click? The new button. And you're going to type in what operating system you want to run in a virtual environment. And you're going to choose Ubuntu, and it automatically fills in that this is a Linux distro. It automatically chooses 64-bit. Now, if you're on an older machine that's 32-bit, you can check that through your system properties, whether you have a 32 or 64-bit system. Most of you are probably running a 64-bit system, but you can change that here if you download the 32-bit version of Ubuntu. You can click Next. This is how much RAM it's going to use. Now, this is not going to permanently take that RAM away just when you're running the VirtualBox, so it's not like it's going to hoard it for itself. You want to leave some RAM available for your computer to run, and automatically kind of gives you a marker here to say, if you go over this green line, you're going to be using a lot of your main system's RAM, which is what's running this VirtualBox. So wouldn't go too far. I've got 32 gigs of RAM, so let's just bump this up to 12. Click next. It's going to say the recommended size for the hard disk is 8 gigabytes. I've run into issues with only 8 gigabytes because remember, this is going to reserve the free space on your hard drive. And when you're done, if you decide you don't like Ubuntu or you don't like one of the distros, you're just going to click delete, right click, delete all files, and it's going to be gone. Poof. It will no longer exist, and you'll have your 8 gigabytes back. That's why this is one of the best ways to try out Linux. But I've got a lot of free space, and I generally recommend you go with about 16 gigabytes. Otherwise, during installation, you may run into some errors because Ubuntu's gotten a little bigger. So create a virtual disk now. We're going to leave this as the default, just VirtualBox disk image, and we're going to allow it to dynamically allocate, which means it can dynamically grow the amount of space that it needs just of the free space you have. It's not going to overwrite any files as I use and install this. And here it's, going with the 8, and this is where I'm going to click and get to the 16 gigabytes of space that I want it to start out with, and go ahead and click create. Now it looks like you can just go ahead and click start and run, but remember, it doesn't know where the operating system is. It hasn't installed it. You've got to install the operating system once, and once you do that, then you could come in here and just click the start button. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up here, we're going to go to settings, and we're going to go down here to storage. And this is probably the hardest part of the entire process. You're going to click on empty, and then you're going to choose your virtual optical disk. This is where you've downloaded that Ubuntu file. This is where you're going to point it to. This is the desktop version I have here. I'm going to click OK, and then start. It doesn't get much easier than that, does it? And so let me drag that window over here so you guys can see it. And all it's going to do is take me through the installation. It's going to install it on that 16 gigabytes of free space we gave it. And just there alone. And when I'm done, if I don't want it, I'm just going to go over here, right click and delete all files, and it's gone if I don't want it. So don't worry, your files are safe, your space is safe. This is just the best way to try things out. So we're going to go through the prompts here. And here we go. So the prompts that it's going to ask you are going to be very simple. Just like any other operating system to the virtual machine, to Ubuntu right now, it doesn't know that it's being installed on a virtual machine. So you're just going to click Install Ubuntu. You can download updates while installing if you want. You can install the third-party plugins. We'll skip that. Click Continue. It's going to say it's going to erase the disk and install Ubuntu. Don't let that scare you. It's not really going to erase your entire hard disk. It's just erasing that 16 gigabytes of space that we gave it to make sure it's completely free. We know it's free. Again, it doesn't know it's in a virtual machine. That's why it asked that question. Go ahead and continue. Now it's going to create your ext4 and your swap files. That's one of the things that makes Ubuntu such a secure operating system. Well, any Linux distribution, such a secure operating system, is because it separates your user files from your operating system files. And allows you for a lot more security. So if viruses happen, the worst case scenario, it can interrupt your user files but not touch your OS files without having access to your root password and information, which we will be setting up here as well. So choose English here, put your name in for your instance. You can choose a password. Since I'm running this on a virtual machine, I'm just going to go ahead and log in automatically and click continue. And now it's going to finish copying the files over. So if you're new to the Linux world, one of the things that you may be afraid of, if you've seen all of the command line codes that can run, sudo apt-get upgrade, sudo apt-get install, all of this stuff that seems like Greek, don't let it scare you. You will actually learn to love it. It will become one of your favorite parts of using Linux. You almost feel like a hacker when you start getting everything scrolling on your screen looking awesome, and you're doing amazing things twice as fast as you could do it through the GUI. But I tell you not to let it scare you, because you could pretty much now, this is what makes Linux such an amazing OS to start getting into, do everything through the GUI just like you can in Windows. So my suggestion is to always try to do everything that you do in Windows within Ubuntu. And what you're going to notice is everything you do in Windows has an equivalent open source alternative for Microsoft Word, Office, all of that. There's alternatives for music, for pictures, and there's a bajillion different options probably in all those platforms. And one of the best things about Linux is the community is so awesome. And that will make you just love Linux. The community, aside from the ones who are kind of snobs when it comes to certain distributions, and that's just with anything you get into, headphones, whatever it is, there's always going to be that group that is kind of snobby with stuff. But outside of that, the core group, the majority of all Linux users, they're just happy you're using Linux. They want to help you. The support forums out there are incredibly. They have IRC chats out there that you can get into and talk with people live. And these guys are so smart. I mean, they really make me look like I just first started with Linux yesterday. They've done everything with Linux, been there, done that. They've converted their friends' computers. They have run into installing it on almost every kind of device. I mean, you can install Ubuntu, like the phone version. I've installed it on Nexus tablets. I've installed it pretty much on every kind of machine you could imagine, and these guys have even done it more. So if you run into an issue, they're the ones who will help you. The search results, when you type in a problem that you're having with Linux, you'll almost instantaneously get the answer that you need. I would say one of my favorite things of Linux, besides the security, is the community. That would be a close tie for first, because the community just rocks that much. And you're going to feel like you're part of a brotherhood, like a gang of secret geeks that now you have the secret handshake to get into their club now that you're a part of Linux. So I love Linux. I also like Windows, so I'm not knocking Microsoft Windows. You're a hardcore Windows user. I love Windows too. I grew up on it. I made my living off of Windows, so it's not a knock on Windows, but Linux is open source. It's free. It's community driven, community built. It's patched super fast. It's got a lot of options open to it. Did I mention it's free? Completely free. These guys work on this. I mean, I do recommend, as always, you donate, but these guys work on this stuff in this huge community and build this beautiful thing, and you don't have to pay a penny for it if you don't want to, and that really gives it a huge advantage. Steam users, you can now play your games on Linux machines. In fact, the Steam OS is based on Linux. A lot of things that you use are based on Linux. Mac OS based on Linux, Android based on Linux. So now we're going to go ahead and click the restart now. It's finished with its install, so we're almost done. We're nearly there. I do want to mention, don't worry about this auto capture keyboard and mouse integration. You can just go ahead and X those out. What it's basically saying is, if you want, you can double click and have your mouse stuck within that screen, but then you can't touch anything else, and you've got to know the shortcuts to get back out of it. So just leave it alone for now. Don't worry about that too much. So you're going to be here. What I just do is go up here and reset the machine and let it do its thing here. Because keep in mind, Ubuntu didn't know that it's in a virtual machine, so it thinks it can just do a whole reset, and so a lot of times it gets stuck on that screen. So just go up there, that tab, and do the machine manual reset there. And here we go. I think we're going to have Linux, Ubuntu here, and we do. So now you start off, and you've got your keyboard shortcuts here, so you can start looking. You've got Mozilla right here, so you can get right onto the web, which is what we do 90% of the time, at least I do with my machine. You can get right onto the web, start using it. You've got your docs. If you click up here, you can search for what's on your computer. You can go to the terminal if you want to see those really cool hack-looking commands that we've all... terminal. I spelled that wrong, didn't I? But still found it. You can pull up your terminal here. You could do some commands that you find online. You can start playing. I love Linux. I love Ubuntu. Get in there. Try to break something. Leave your comments below on the distributions that you love or things that you've done with VirtualBox that are amazing. It's really a great program. Until next time, I'll talk to you guys later.